Chapter 11 Plan begins to implement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this point, Budek could just make out that Chen Fan had finished every last scrap of food. Down here on the 6th floor, the light was pathetic. No matter how hard the pirates squinted, they could barely see into the opposite cell. Imagine how dim it was. If Budek hadn't been right there by the bars, helping Chen Fan train, he wouldn't have noticed it at all. He hesitated a moment, then tossed the leftover food in front of Chen Fan's cell. Hayden rode, slumped in his corner, glanced over at the noise and went back to sleep, too lazy to care. But seeing the food Budek provided, and remembering the training he'd given him over the past year, something shifted in Chen Fan's heart. No matter how hardened he was, he asked Budek seriously, "Major General Budek, if I ever get a chance to break you out of here, would you turn pirate?" "I'm being serious here." Budek considered the question, thinking about his lifelong beliefs. "I'm sorry," he finally said, "as much as I resent the Navy, it's only directed at that one bastard. My father was a rear admiral, and I've lived at Navy headquarters since I was a kid. I could never be a pirate." Chen Fan didn't push it. Everyone had their own path. He started eating, the small burst of energy helping him regain his strength. After that, with Budek's help, he began training his hockey, day in, day out, month after month. A year later, Chen Fan's fist crackled with a black aura. His armament hockey had reached at least the first level, and he could now parry the rocks Budek threw at him. He could even close his eyes and rely on instinct to dodge. His observation hockey was definitely improving. He'd also mastered Return of Life, the 6th form technique, and expanded on its secrets. But even with all that, Chen Fan didn't seem thrilled. He felt like he'd hit a wall. His training had slowed to a crawl. At this rate, he had no idea when he'd reach the 2nd level. And with only basic armament and observation hockey, he'd never get out of Impel Down. "Major General Budek, my training has slowed down. It feels like no matter how hard I work, my understanding of hockey is barely improving." Chen Fan had no experience with this, so he had to ask Budek directly. "You're already a freak. Learning hockey in a year would put you in the top 3 of anyone I've ever met. Everyone hits a plateau. It's not your fault that your hockey training feels slow. It happens to everyone, usually. A life-or-death battle is the best way to break through, but you can't exactly get that here." Budek sounded regretful. He'd often wondered how much further Chen Fan could go if he wasn't stuck in Impel Down. "I see." Chen Fan thought for a moment. It seemed like he needed to move up his plan. He'd been wanting to get to the 5th floor for a while now. The environment on the 6th floor was just too cramped for training. Plus, if he remembered right, there was a hidden mezzanine on the 5th floor. Even the warden didn't know about it. Chen Fan started gesturing to Budek. Over the past year, they'd developed a system for things they didn't want the other prisoners to know. They kept the gestures simple, knowing they were being watched. The visibility was terrible. Even standing right at the bars, they could barely make out a blurry figure. Chen Fan's gestures basically said he wanted Budek to kill Hayden Road. He needed to leave the 6th floor and get to the 5th. And the only way he could think of was to use Hayden Road's cell, across from his. After all, it was the only cell where he could even be seen. "Are you sure?" Budek thought it over, then gestured back. "Might as well try it. It's better than rotting here forever." Chen Fan gestured back. Budek hesitated, then finally nodded. "Okay, I'll find a way to take out Hayden Road." "Be careful, Major General Budek." Chen Fan was worried. Hayden Road was still stronger than Budek, but all he could do was hope Budek pulled it off. Night fell. The endless hell was so quiet you could hear the wind whistling through the cracks. Budek stared at Hayden Road in his corner, his eyes filled with a cold fury. Without hesitating, he gripped the stone in his hand and lunged at Hayden Road. Hayden Road, dozing with his eyes closed, sensed danger and snapped awake. But the sharp stone was already upon him. Hayden Road didn't dodge in time. The stone struck his right eye, blinding him instantly. Blood poured down his face. He couldn't understand it. Why was Budek doing this? Why would he sneak attack him? But he didn't care about that anymore. He just wanted to kill Budek. "You son of a bitch!" Hayden Lu roared in pain and threw a wild punch at Budek. Budek didn't flinch. He met the punch head on, then wrapped his arms around Hayden Road in a bear hug. The two men crashed to the ground, wrestling and grappling. Budek knew he was at a disadvantage, shackled and unable to reach certain spots in the cell. His previous strategy had been to keep his distance, which led to him losing. This time, he clung to Hayden Road, not giving him any room to maneuver. The sounds of the fight drew the attention of the other prisoners. What the hell? Who's fighting in the middle of the night? Sounds like it's coming from the cell with the Navy traitor. Seriously? What's he up to? Trying to get a cell to himself like the kid? Who knows? Who cares? I can't see anything anyway, but it's nice to have some entertainment. The other pirates were confused as to why Budek and Hayden Road were fighting, but mostly they were just enjoying the show. Only Chen Fan, standing at the bars, watched everything carefully. He desperately wanted Budek to win, so he could finally put his plan into motion. Chapter 12. Preparing to leave the 6th floor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside the cell, Budek was in a brutal fight with Hayden Road. He'd gotten the jump on him with a sharp stone, giving him a major advantage. Hayden Road was getting cut to pieces, bleeding and in agony, but the real problem was Budek, who seemed to have completely lost it. Hayden Road was terrified. He'd never faced someone so relentless, so willing to risk everything. Hayden Road kept hitting Budek, but Budek didn't even flinch. He was trading blow for blow, life for life. Budek, I didn't do anything to you. Please, just let me go. I won't press charges for you blinding me. I promise, this night never happened. Weakened by blood loss and the searing pain, Hayden Road knew he was going to die if it continued. He begged for mercy. Budek didn't seem to hear him. His eyes were bloodshot, and he kept stabbing with the sharp stone. 10 minutes crawled by. The cell floor was covered in blood. Hayden Road lay dead in a pool of it, his body a mass of wounds. Budek finally let out a shaky breath. He wasn't in much better shape, covered in injuries himself. If he hadn't ambushed Hayden Road and wrestled him to the ground, forcing a desperate struggle, the outcome might have been different. Who? Budek collapsed, staring up at the ceiling with a faint smile. Hearing the fight end, the other pirates wondered what had gotten into Budek. Why was he so savage? Chen Fan, watching everything, clenched his fists. He swore he'd escape and avenge Budek by killing that lieutenant general. 2 days later, Budek was healing, and Chen Fan was ready for the next phase of his plan. He started yelling like a madman. I gotta get out of here. I'm too young to rot in this place. His outburst immediately drew attention. What's that kid yelling about? Sounds like he's losing it. Going stir crazy? No way. He's been training hard every day. How could he crack all of a sudden? Why not? Seen plenty of guys break down after too long. He probably just gave up hope. While the pirates were speculating, they heard a thudding sound. Chen Fan was slamming himself against the wall, making a racket. Chen Fan, are you nuts? You're gonna kill yourself. Budek called out, playing along with the plan. The pirates were even more shocked that Chen Fan was trying to commit suicide. No way, the little guy really snapped. Trying to off himself. Told you, all that training on level 6 is useless. See? He trained every day, and now he's caved and wants to die. Yeah, it's been a while since someone tried suicide. Hey, kid, hit harder. You call that a suicide attempt? Hearing Chen Fan was killing himself, the pirates didn't show any sympathy. They just egged him on. Are you crazy? Stop it. You're supposed to get out of here and avenge me. Budek kept up the act, pretending to try and stop him. After 5 minutes, Chen Fan stopped banging on the wall. Hey, what happened? Is the little guy dead? Budek, you're the only one who can see in there. Is he dead? Yeah, Budek, check it out. The pirates pressed Budek for information. Dead. Why? You promised you'd escape and get revenge. Why'd you have to go and kill yourself, you little bastard? Budek roared in fake frustration, cursing Chen Fan. Ha! Is the Admiral going crazy too? Maybe you should kill yourself. Told you, no point in training every day. No chance of escaping. This guy actually thought the kid could get out. Yeah, well, hope's gone now. The pirates mocked him, and nobody suspected a thing. Budek's angry outburst went on for nearly a minute before he quieted down. Inside the cell, Chen Fan was playing dead, lying perfectly still. He didn't move until nightfall. Chen Fan wasn't worried about observation hockey. It was an unspoken rule on level 6 that you didn't use it without a good reason. Everyone deserved some privacy, even in prison. He crept to the bars. As a former assassin, he was skilled at lockpicking. This lock was pretty simple, and Chen Fan had studied it. He pulled out a key he'd made from a bone, along with another key for his sea stone cuffs. Without hesitation, Chen Fan started picking the lock on the cell while no one was watching. He glanced at Budek, who was ready. Budek immediately understood. Why the hell do you have to die like that? That he started banging on the bars, pretending to be upset. Hey, what the hell are you screaming about? If you wanna die, go to hell and leave me alone. Yeah, the little punk you were training is dead. You might as well kick the bucket too. Budek's yelling drew the pirates' attention, and they started cursing at him. Meanwhile, Chen Fan quietly unlocked the cell door and closed it behind him. As quickly as possible, he slipped in front of the iron gate. In this hell with almost no light, with Budek yelling to distract the other prisoners, nobody noticed Chen Fan was gone. Chen Fan examined the lock on the gate. After a moment, he used his bone key to open it. He'd given Budek a key to unlock the cuffs and chains earlier, but the light was too dim. After opening the door, he saw a dark passageway. He'd scouted it out beforehand, or he wouldn't have dared to open the door. At the end of the passage was the exit from level 6, there were only 2 ways to leave, the elevator or the stairs. Chapter 13 Layers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After a moment's thought, Chen Fan decided against the stairs. He figured if he took them to the 5th floor, he'd inevitably pass certain cells. Instead of gambling on whether those cells were occupied, it was better to just go straight down in the elevator. After all, the lower levels were ice hell. With that in mind, Chen Fan didn't hesitate. He headed directly to the elevator shaft and peered into the black abyss. Without a second thought, he jumped, using moonwalk to control his descent. After dropping about 15 feet, landing him on the 5th floor, Chen Fan kicked off the wall, launching himself out of the shaft. Feeling the overwhelming cold, the sub-zero temperatures, Chen Fan thought to himself, so this is Impel Down's 5th floor. The first thing he did upon arriving was use the key he'd been holding onto to unlock the shackles that had bound him for 3 years. Then, looking out at the endless white expanse of ice and snow, he couldn't help but grin. This place was perfect to train and fight to his heart's content. He quickly stashed the shackles and prepared to search for level 5.5, as he recalled. Level 5.5 should be located near the drainage outlet, but staring at the vast, white landscape, Chen Fan had no idea where to start. He began his search slowly. After only a few steps, a 30-foot-tall ice tiger appeared before him. The massive creature, the size of a house, bared its teeth at Chen Fan. Chen Fan, who was starting to feel a bit peckish, smiled, his fists becoming covered in a black energy. Shave! His body blurred, disappearing from its spot at incredible speed, and he attacked the ice tiger. The ice tiger, seeing that the human dared to attack, lunged at Chen Fan without hesitation. The fist covered in the black energy collided with the tiger's massive claw. It looked like a pebble hitting a boulder. But the result was quite the opposite. Crack! The sound of shattering bones echoed, and the giant ice tiger was sent flying. Feeling its right claw shattered from a single punch, the giant ice tiger looked at Chen Fan with fear in its eyes. It wanted to run. Too bad for it, Chen Fan wasn't about to let it escape. Shave! He used the naval art again. Shave! Chen Fan vanished from his spot in the blink of an eye. Finger pistol. Chen Fan's 5 fingers formed into a point, crackling with power, and he stabbed toward the giant tiger. With its enormous head and terror-stricken face, the giant ice tiger couldn't evade. Blood spurted as Chen Fan's fingers pierced the giant tiger's head. Then, he started eating the raw meat. There wasn't any other way. Making a fire was impossible in this environment. In one sitting, Chen Fan devoured almost 45 pounds of meat. It gave a sense of just how much he needed to eat to feel full these days. after easily dispatching the giant tiger, Chen Fan didn't linger. He continued searching for the drainage outlet. 3 days later, the sun shone on the 5th floor, but it had little effect on the ice hell with temperatures well below freezing. Chen Fan, who had just killed another animal, wore a wide smile. After 3 days, he'd finally found the drainage outlet. During his search, he'd run into several pirates and, without exception, used them as practice dummies and killed them all. He didn't want to bring any unwanted company to level 5.5, besides, the pirates on level 5 weren't as strong as those on level 6, but there were still some powerful fighters at the rear admiral level. With Chen Fan's current strength, around a marine colonel level, he was no match for them. Chen Fan looked at the ice-covered drainage outlet before him, thinking, who would have thought there was a whole other world beneath this? Without hesitation, Chen Fan punched through it. As the ice shattered, Chen Fan dropped through the hole and saw an expansive space, several thousand square feet wide and tens of feet high. There were even chairs made of ice, preserved meat and other supplies. Then, as Chen Fan looked ahead, his expression shifted. He saw a giant man, almost as tall as level 5.5 itself. He was clearly a giant. Chen Fan remembered that this place had been built by a clan of giants. The person in front of him must be the one who built level 5.5. Who are you? And how did you get here? That the giant, Morley, seemed very honest and earnest. Chen Fan approached him slowly. Sorry, I fell in here by accident. Did you build this place? It's amazing. Yes, I built it. But this is my private domain. Morley looked thoughtful, considering whether to let Chen Fan stay. In his heart, he didn't want to, otherwise he wouldn't have been alone down here for so long, but he didn't realize that Chen Fan was now less than 15 feet away. Shave. Chen Fan's eyes hardened, and his body disappeared instantly. Armament hockey, finger pistol. His fingers turned into a claw, crackling with black energy. Chen Fan was going for the kill, aiming his right hand at Morley's head. You. Morley quickly raised his massive arms to defend himself. Tear, a deep gash appeared on Morley's arm, exposing bone. Blood gushed out, a terrifying sight. You bastard, I'm going to kill you. No matter how honest Morley was, he knew Chen Fan was trying to kill him. His massive fist shot out with the force of a gale. Seeing this, Chen Fan didn't hesitate. Armament hockey, tempest kick. Black hockey enveloped his right foot, and he swung it out like a blade. Boom! The collision of fist and foot created a powerful shockwave, sending both Chen Fan and Morley staggering backwards. Seeing this, Chen Fan thought to himself, no wonder giants are so powerful, even without hockey. You bastard, I'm going to kill you. Morley was enraged. He punched the ground, and the soil began to shift and transform, becoming like a winding tendril. It was even trying to encircle Chen Fan. Chen Fan realized immediately that this was a devil fruit power. He remembered who the giant was, Morley, one of the future commanders in the Revolutionary Army, and the user of the push-push fruit. Seeing the soil about to engulf him, Chen Fan didn't hesitate. He unleashed his tempest kick again, sending out several powerful cuts. He destroyed the 40-foot wall of earth. Then, Chen Fan looked at the giant before him, thinking, this guy's tougher than I thought. But so what? If you're going to make an enemy, you might as well kill them. The next second, Chen Fan disappeared again, his hands transformed into claws, like a tiger, attacking Morley. Chapter 14 Acting as a Hunter on Level 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Adobe Wall Fusion. Morley's yell cut through the air as his fist slammed into the ground. Instantly, chunks of dirt morphed into giant balls, hurtling straight for Chen Fan. Seeing this, Chen Fan didn't bother dodging. Bang, bang, the moment the soil balls hit Chen Fan's claws, they exploded into dust, but the impact stalled Chen Fan's attack, just long enough for Morley's massive fist, packed with brutal force, to slam into him. Without a second thought, Chen Fan threw up the black substance in his arms as a shield. The force of the blow sent Chen Fan staggering back several steps. He instantly recovered, lunging forward again. The two went at it, toe to toe. Every punch and kick Chen Fan threw was coated with first-level armament hockey. Even so, he could only trade blows evenly with Morley. Giants were naturally powerful. feeling his energy draining and registering the slight damage he was inflicting on Mori. Chen Fan knew he couldn't keep going head-to-head. He immediately used Shave to gain some speed. The shift in tactics paid off. Chen Fan stopped trying to overpower Mori, dodging his wild attacks and the earth walls that kept popping up. 10 minutes crawled by, sweat poured down Mori's forehead. Huff, huff. He gasped for air, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at Chen Fan. You coward! Stand your ground and fight, Mori roared, his voice cracking. Chen Fan ignored him. As far as he was concerned, winning was all that mattered. He kept hammering away with a relentless barrage of fists. Even with Mori's thick hide, the constant pounding was taking its toll. His body was quickly becoming a patchwork of cuts and bruises. Chen Fan wasn't in much better shape. He had to split his focus, dodging attacks and sidestepping the ever-present earth walls. His stamina was getting sucked away. They traded blows, blood flying, the ground around them getting torn to shreds. As time wore on, Mori's injuries worsened, and Chen Fan was starting to feel his strength flagging. Thankfully, the heat generated from all that food he had devoured over the years was still in his system, constantly revitalizing his body and boosting his stamina. Otherwise, he might not have lasted this long. Chen Fan glared at the blood-soaked Mori, sensing his opportunity. The time to end this was now. Armament. Secret art. Collapse fist. Chen Fan clenched his right fist, channeling all his power into a single point, coating it with black hockey. The punch shot out like a cannonball, an unstoppable force aimed straight at Mori. This was a secret move Chen Fan had mastered from the 6 styles of the Navy. It allowed him to unleash all his strength in one concentrated blow. You finally decided to stop running. Sensing the power behind the attack, Mori didn't flinch. He was confident in his strength. Dozer punch. In that instant, all the dirt around Mori rose up, swirling around his fist like an armored glove. He swung his fist forward. Boom! The 2 fists collided, sounding like thunder and unleashing a shockwave that ripped through the area. Gravel flew in every direction, and dust clouded the air. Chen Fan's punch shattered Mori's dirt-covered fist, the force behind it continuing straight through to Mori's own fist. Mori felt the force rip through his body, his face contorting in agony. The blow crushed his bones and pulverized his internal organs. Chen Fan's punch had been devastating. No way. How can you be stronger than me? Disbelief etched on his face. Mori collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain, and then fell silent. Chen Fan looked down at him, unmoved. He needed this place secure. First, he located the drainage outlet and covered it with ice and snow, just like Mori had done before. Unless someone went looking for it, like Chen Fan did, nobody would ever find it. With that done, Chen Fan turned his attention to the stockpiled food and started chowing down. With that much grain and meat, Chen Fan wouldn't have to worry about food for a while, all thanks to the big guy. From then on, Chen Fan started training like he had been on the 6th floor. He hoisted a massive boulder, several yards high, onto his back and started doing push-ups. 1 rep at a time. He kept pushing himself, sweat pouring off him. Chen Fan could feel his strength growing with each rep. He felt a rush of excitement. 9,999 reps. He kept going until noon, then stopped for a quick bite. That familiar heat spread through his body, constantly revitalizing his internal organs and restoring his energy. Alone in that forgotten space, Chen Fan trained, fueled by sweat and determination. 6 months later, Chen Fan decided to take a break. He felt a massive improvement in his strength. He decided to head back up and find a worthy opponent. He glanced at the black hockey coating his hand. He was so close to mastering the 2nd level of armament hockey. Same goes for observation hockey. He was just a hair's breadth away from level 2. If he stayed here training, it would be like before. He'd be stuck here for who knows how long before breaking through. So, Chen Fan decided to go hunt. He left the 5.5th floor and stepped out into the vast, white expanse. He was a hunter, searching for prey in the frozen wasteland of level 5. Chen Fan wouldn't have dared do this before. Back then, his strength was barely at the level of a Marine colonel. Now, he was nearly as strong as a Marine Major General. On the 5th floor of Impel Down, with its hellish ice, there were very few pirates with that kind of strength. That's why Chen Fan was ready to hunt. Days turned into weeks, the sun and moon took their turns, and the ice bit to the bone. Chen Fan stood over a corpse, the 10th pirate he had killed, but Chen Fan still wasn't satisfied. He hadn't faced a pirate strong enough to push him to his limits, someone with the power of a major general. He still hadn't managed to unlock the second level of his armament hockey and observation hockey. Shaking his head, Chen Fan sat down on the ground to rest. He wouldn't waste time killing more nobodies on the 5th floor. Chapter 15, the second level of armed domineering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although the Navy doesn't lose sleep over dead pirate prisoners, a sudden drop in their numbers would raise eyebrows. Besides, killing those weak pirates wouldn't make Chen Fan any stronger. After resting up, Chen Fan planned to head back out tomorrow to hunt for prey. Suddenly, a stocky, middle-aged man with a buzz cut appeared. They locked eyes, and Chen Fan felt a prickle of danger. At the same time, Agil spotted the body next to Chen Fan. He eyed Chen Fan warily and started to back away. Chen Fan had finally found an opponent who could push him to the brink, maybe even help him break through his current limits. No way was he letting him go. Shave. In a flash, Chen Fan vanished. Armament, gun. His 5 fingers morphed into claws, sheathed in black energy, and he lunged at Agil at blinding speed. Agil hadn't expected such a decisive attack, but he was ready for it. Armament, straight punch. Agil's wrist, thick as a basketball, bulged with veins. His right arm glowed with armament hockey as he threw a punch straight at Chen Fan. Boom! Fist and claw collided with the force of crashing boulders. Ice shards exploded in all directions, and cracks spiderwebbed across the ice. Chen Fan stumbled back 5 or 6 steps, while Agil only retreated 3. Clearly, Agil had the edge in raw power. Come on! Far from intimidated, Chen Fan grinned. He surged forward again, fists pumping with power, hammering at Agil. Agil, seeing Chen Fan's relentless attack, scowled. He was a pirate, not a saint. He wasn't about to back down from a fight. You wanna die that bad? Agil's fist also crackled with black energy as he charged. Bang, bang. They traded blows, fists flying, a brutal, bloody brawl. They fought like wild animals, using every dirty trick they knew. The fight raged on, their speed blurring into afterimages. Each blow left Chen Fan with new cuts and bruises, blood staining the ice. But Chen Fan was ecstatic. Agil was hurting too. Even though Agil was physically stronger, Chen Fan's crazed intensity unnerved him. He couldn't believe his luck. He'd just stepped out for a bite to eat and stumbled into a maniac. Bang, bang. Chen Fan didn't care what Agil thought. His fists, coated in armament hockey, kept hammering. Even a saint would lose his temper. Agil, fueled by fury, returned every blow with equal force. Time ticked by, and the ground turned red. They were locked in a brutal close-quarters battle. Both were masters of physical combat, and though Agil was slightly stronger, he couldn't land a decisive blow. Neither would yield. You psycho. I'm gonna kill you. Agil roared. That's the idea. Today, it's either you kill me or I kill you. As he spoke, Chen Fan's right foot flashed, swathed in darkness like a giant pillar. He kicked, aiming for Agil's ribs with terrifying power. Agil, face contorted in rage, threw up his arms to block. The force of the blow sent a shock of pain through him, but he held the line. Then, Agil snatched Chen Fan's right foot. Before Chen Fan could react, Agil grabbed his leg and hurled him into the air, spinning him like a top before slamming him down. Boom! Chen Fan crashed onto the ice, leaving a crater. He staggered to his feet, wiping blood from his mouth. Come on. Shave. Chen Fan reappeared, attacking Agil again. Agil braced himself, his fists radiating armament hockey. Boom! They collided in a bloody exchange. Fists, feet, heads, everything was a weapon now. They both knew what was at stake. Only one could walk away. The loser would die. Time ticked by. Who? Both Chen Fan and Agil were panting, covered in cuts and bruises. They traded another punch, then stumbled back. Kid, I'm sending you to hell. Agil growled, eyes bloodshot. Same goes for you. Chen Fan grinned, a feral look on his face. Armament, Overlord fist. Agil's body surged with power, his chest heaving. His right arm swelled, veins throbbing as if about to burst, his fist, shrouded in dark armament hockey, held terrifying destructive force. Armament, secret, collapse fist. Chen Fan didn't flinch. He focused all his energy, his body burning like a furnace, his right fist became a weapon of pure destruction. Boom! Their fists collided like dragons clashing. The ice exploded around them, cracks racing outwards, shockwaves radiated in all directions. Agil's raw power seemed to overwhelm Chen Fan, forcing him back. Looks like you're done for. I win. Agil snarled, feeling the force of the blow. Chen Fan tasted blood. Am I going to lose like this? Am I going to die here? No. I'm not the strongest yet. I haven't reached the top. I can't lose here. His eyes hardened with resolve. The black substance on his fist seemed to solidify, taking on a life of its own. Chen Fan's armament hockey was evolving, breaking through to the second stage. His power surged. Suddenly, Agil was on the defensive, stunned. Agil couldn't believe it. How? Your armament hockey, second level. Impossible. But before he could finish, Agil heard a sickening crack. His fist was shattered. He screamed in agony as the force of the blow ripped through his body, breaking bones. Then, disbelief still etched on his face, Agil collapsed, staring at Chen Fan with wide, lifeless eyes. Who? Chen Fan collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. He knew how close he'd come. If he hadn't broken through, he would have died, but the life-or-death struggle had pushed him to the next level. His armament hockey had evolved. Fighting through the pain, Chen Fan staggered away. In his condition, he'd be easy prey for another pirate. After a while, Chen Fan made it back to the 5.5th floor. He immediately devoured everything he could find. 16 Jailbreak. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He felt a warm surge through his body, like a soothing balm after a storm, constantly mending his injuries. After devouring a full 66 pounds of meat, Chen Fan was wiped out. Only then did his internal wounds begin to heal, and his external cut started to scab. That gives you an idea of how badly he'd been hurt, but mastering the second level of armament hockey made it all worthwhile. The next day dawned scorching hot. Chen Fan felt almost fully recovered, so he went back to his usual training. He strapped the stone onto his back and started doing push-ups, then refueled with food to replenish his energy. Next up were squats, also with the massive boulder strapped to his back. Only that level of exertion could make Chen Fan feel truly sore and tired. This showed just how much his strength and stamina had grown since arriving 3 years ago. He spent the evening honing his armament and observation hockey, and so went the days, each one blurring into the next, the months slipping by. Time passed like sand through his fingers. 2 years later, Chen Fan had just finished his push-ups. He tossed the boulder off his back and wiped the sweat from his brow. His muscles and bones thrummed, a symphony of raw power. He could throw a casual punch and generate a shockwave of air. His strength was exponentially greater than it had been 2 years ago, and both his observation and armament hockey were at the peak of the second level. He was just one step away from breaking through to the third. He'd also managed to develop the second move of the 6 powers. Beside him lay the body of a pirate from the 5th level. He had a bounty of over 100 million and possessed the strength of a Marine Headquarters Rear Admiral, yet Chen Fan had killed him. This meant Chen Fan's current strength was close to that of a Vice Admiral. Originally, Chen Fan wasn't confident about escaping, as he was only approaching Vice Admiral level, but he'd recently overheard some pirates on the 5th level saying that the Warden of Impel Down had resigned a month ago. Magellan had taken his place. Hearing that, Chen Fan decided to make his escape. Magellan wasn't yet at his peak strength, definitely not at Admiral level. Shiryu wasn't at his peak either. Impel Down was at its weakest. If Chen Fan didn't seize this opportunity, another might never come. Impel Down was infamous for being inescapable. That's mainly because the Warden is generally a powerful Admiral-level figure, backed up by 2 or 3 Vice Admiral-level officers, and, crucially, Impel Down is close to Marine Headquarters, so reinforcements can arrive in under an hour. Trying to force your way out would require at least Admiral-level power, and even then, failure was likely. After all, the Warden of Impel Down is no pushover. After a moment's thought, Chen Fan decided that now was his best shot. while Impel Down was in transition, without hesitation, he began preparations to escape. At his current strength, he couldn't find a worthy opponent on the 5th level who posed a threat. Besides, he'd hit a wall. Whether it was his physical fitness or his hockey, he couldn't make any breakthroughs in the short term. If he kept grinding like this, he didn't know when he'd be able to try his jailbreak plan. Plus, in a few years, Magellan and Shiryu would be stronger. Escaping then would be even harder. Once he'd made up his mind, Chen Fan set his plan in motion. He didn't hesitate, resting and preparing himself on the 5.5 th level to get into top condition. Half an hour later, feeling he was at his physical and mental peak, he left the 5.5 th level and headed for the ice hell. Instead of lingering on the 5th level, Chen Fan went straight to the stairs. Without hesitation, he approached the door to the 5th level. It was made of sea prism stone, indestructible even with Chen Fan's power. There was also a video transponder snail on it. If a pirate tried to break it, the Marines would know instantly. Chen Fan couldn't smash the door, but he knew how to pick the lock. He'd quietly observed the keyhole earlier, and without wasting time, he used his makeshift key to open the iron door. Click, click, click. As the door swung open, Chen Fan stepped inside. The 2 guards were startled to see a pirate brazenly barging in. They started to sound the alarm, but Chen Fan used shave. He vanished in a blur, and before they could react, he punched them both in the head, sending blood flying. The 2 guards were dead before they hit the floor. Chen Fan grabbed the large set of keys from the table. They were all numbered, corresponding to the cells on the 6th level. There were even keys for the handcuffs and shackles of every pirate. Instead of going down, Chen Fan took the stairs straight to the 6th level. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the prison. Chen Fan knew the Marines had noticed something amiss on the video transponder snail. He sped up as he kicked open the door. A flash of light cut through the 6th level. The sirens had caught their attention and now the pirates stared. They were surprised to see Chen Fan, whom they'd assumed was dead, opening the door. Am I seeing things? Is that Chen Fan? Yeah, I remember what he looked like when he first got here. He's changed a lot, but I recognize him. Isn't that guy dead? What's he doing here? And he just opened the door to the 6th level. The pirates were bewildered. Hey Chen Fan, what are you doing here? You set off the alarm, right? You're trying to break out of jail. Not bad kid, I didn't think you had it in you. Let me out, and I'll escape with you. Yeah, let me out. I'm a big-time pirate with 100 million berry bounty. If you let me out, I'll join your crew. That's right, kid, let me out, and I'll follow you from now on. Chapter 17 Sakaski arrived. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Those pirates, seeing the keys in Chen Fan's hand, figured he was going to let them out and even offered him a piece of cake, but Chen Fan ignored them. He had his own plan. He went straight to Budek and tossed him the keys. Major General Budek, here's the key. Let's get out of here. You're starting a jailbreak. You sure about this? Budek asked, hope flickering in his eyes as he unlocked his cuffs. No guarantees, but we gotta try. With that, Chen Fan led Budek to the door. Seeing Chen Fan about to leave, the pirate started yelling. Hey, kid, where you going? Let us out. We can help you escape. Yeah, little dude, don't ditch us. You can't escape alone. Unlock these cuffs and let us out. We'll help you. Let me out, and I'll give you all my money. Please, don't leave us. Let me out. I want to get out of here. That the pirates panicked, realizing Chen Fan was about to leave them behind. They saw a glimmer of hope and desperately wanted to escape. They didn't want to spend the rest of their lives locked up. Some offered to join Chen Fan's crew, others begged for their freedom, but Chen Fan didn't care. He had other plans for them. He wanted them to help him escape, even if unknowingly. Chen Fan, let's go. Budek urged, pushing Chen Fan to hurry up. Hold on, trust me. Just a few seconds. Chen Fan remained where he was, listening to the elevator stopping and the sound of footsteps rushing down the stairs. Budek was visibly anxious, but he trusted Chen Fan. 3, 2, 1. After silently counting down, Chen Fan accurately tossed the keys into the corresponding cells. The pirates erupted with excitement, scrambling to unlock their cuffs and get out. Most didn't even bother to thank Chen Fan. "Let's roll the dice," Chen Fan said, heading for the stairs. Budek, who was beyond anxious, followed close behind. Chen Fan wanted to release those pirates to create chaos and use the confusion to his advantage. He'd waited to ensure he had a head start. Magellan was theoretically the strongest person in the prison. As warden, he'd rushed to deal with the situation ASAP. There were only two ways up, stairs and elevator. That's why Chen Fan said they were rolling the dice. He was betting on the stairs and avoiding Magellan. They made it to the 4th floor and ran into jailers rushing toward them. Chen Fan grinned. He'd made the right call. Magellan wasn't here, nor was Shiryu of the Rain. Just some grunts. "Major General Budek, take them out. We need to break through." Chen Fan yelled. Together, they charged the crowd of jailers. Meanwhile, Magellan and Shiryu led a group of jailers to the 6th floor. They were immediately met by escaped pirates. Well, isn't it the new warden? And a deputy warden? Here to welcome our escape. Enough chatter. Kill them and get out." The pirates glared at Magellan and Shiryu, their faces twisted with murderous intent. Magellan was furious, seeing all the pirates released so soon after he had taken over. He scanned the crowd, searching for Chen Fan, the one responsible for the mess. After a fruitless search, he realized Chen Fan had escaped via the stairs. "Shiryu, take the stairs and stop Wang Ji's kid. I'll handle this mess." Magellan said grimly. Shiryu, who usually disliked Magellan, didn't argue. He knew the gravity of the situation. "You sure about this? There are a lot of pirates. Don't get yourself killed." Shiryu hesitated, knowing the pirates on the 6th floor wouldn't be easy to deal with. "Trust me. You have to stop that kid from escaping. That's an order from the warden." Magellan repeated seriously. "Damn it. Guess I'll have to listen to you this once." Shiryu knew he couldn't let the culprit leave Impel Down. "Did you hear that? The new warden thinks he can stop us all. That's arrogant. We're famous pirates from the New World. Let's take out the new warden." Dozens of pirates charged Magellan. Most had their bodies covered in armament hockey, showing they were no pushovers. Magellan's face hardened, and he unleashed his venom, coating the entire floor. "Let's recapture these pirates. If we can't capture them, kill them." Dozens of pirates and jailers led by Magellan clashed in a fierce battle. At the same time, Navy headquarters received the news as the alarm sounded. A figure engulfed in lava rushed out, heading towards Impel Down. Bandages covered his body, showing his injuries hadn't fully healed. Fleet Admiral Sengoku originally wanted to dispatch Vice Admiral Kizaru. He was the fastest of the 3 admirals. Unfortunately, he and Akiji were on a mission and couldn't be reached. Otherwise, Sengoku wouldn't have sent Akainu, who was still recovering. Meanwhile, Chen Fan and Budek were cutting down the jailers. Ordinary soldiers were no match for them. Both had the strength of top-tier vice admirals. Budek had been in prison on the 6th floor, but he had maintained his fitness knowing Chen Fan was planning an escape. He exercised and kept himself in shape. He was still in his prime. So, despite being out of practice, he was close to his peak condition. They reached the 1st floor and burst outside. They breathed in the fresh air and basked in the sunlight, but they knew they couldn't waste time. They needed to hijack a small warship and get away from Impel Down. They wouldn't be safe until they left the island. As they prepared to board the warship, a figure in a white hat stood before them, holding a sword. It was Shiryu of the Rain. Chen Fan and Budek's eyes narrowed, and they clenched their fists. They knew Shiryu was the biggest obstacle to their escape. "Just die here," Shiryu said, with no intention of taking them back alive. "Let's go." Chen Fan yelled. Both figures vanished, attacking Shiryu from both sides. Their fists were coated in armament hockey, packing enough power to shatter gold and crack rocks. Shiryu grinned, his face lighting up with excitement. He swung his sword, Raimei, which was also covered in armament hockey. Shiryu's armament hockey had reached the 2nd level. The black fists collided with the sword, sending sparks flying. "Not bad. I hope you'll give me a decent fight." Shiryu smiled menacingly as he unleashed his power. Chen Fan and Budek knew they had to give it their all. The fight became a flurry of blows, steel meeting flesh. Despite being outnumbered, Shiryu held his own and even seemed to gain the upper hand. Budek's expression darkened. He knew his armament hockey was only at the first level, the weakest of the three. He knew that the longer the fight dragged on, the worse their chances would be. Without hesitation, Budek's body expanded, growing from 7 feet to nearly 20. Brown fur sprouted all over his body. He transformed into a giant bear. Thanks to his bear fruit powers, he swung his massive paw at Shiryu. The force of the blow caught Shiryu off guard, sending him stumbling backward. Shiryu was past his prime. His current strength was only slightly greater than Chen Fan's. Budek's power doubled when he used his devil fruit ability. For a moment, Budek was able to suppress Shiryu. Chen Fan pressed his attack, coating his arms in dark matter and punching Shiryu relentlessly. Facing the combined onslaught, Shiryu was pushed into a disadvantage. The sounds of flesh meeting steel were deafening as the three fought. 10 minutes passed. Shiryu was covered in cuts and bruises. Ha, ha. He panted, struggling against the two opponents. While Chen Fan and Budek also had sword wounds, they were in better shape, but neither looked happy. They knew they were close to Navy headquarters, and it had already been 10 minutes. If they didn't finish this soon, they would be caught when reinforcements arrived. Let's end this now, Chen Fan said to Budek. Budek nodded in agreement. You're a pirate and a traitor. So shameless. You want to team up against me? Shiryu's face twisted with rage. One sword style. Sky slash. Shiryu's sword aura exploded, unleashing a terrifying wave of power. He gripped Raime with both hands and swung it forward. A wave of white sword energy, several meters long, slashed towards Chen Fan and Budek. Chen Fan and Budek unleashed their strongest attacks. Navy style. Sixth form. Secret technique, Overlord Fist. Chen Fan's body turned red, and his internal organs beat rapidly. Veins popped on his right arm, and his fist glowed black. All of his power converged into a single point. A punch filled with terrifying power blasted towards the white sword energy. Iron Palm. Budek also gathered his energy and blood, focusing it on his arms. His huge bear paw crackled with black matter. Boom! The two attacks collided with the white sword energy. Gravel flew everywhere, dust clouded the air, and the surrounding area was devastated. The white sword energy pushed Budek back, but before Shiryu could celebrate, Chen Fan's pitch-black fist shattered it. Shiryu's face was filled with shock, and he had no time to dodge. He blocked with his sword. Clang! Chen Fan's punch struck Shiryu's sword. The impact sent Shiryu flying. Boom! A crater formed in the ground as Shiryu crashed. His mouth was filled with blood. He tried to stand but couldn't. Chen Fan's punch had left him defenseless. Chen Fan rushed forward, preparing to finish the job. Shiryu's face was filled with rage, but he was helpless. Get out of the way. Budek yelled from behind. Sensing the danger, Chen Fan pulled back. Chapter 18 Monster like Sakaski. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A blast of molten magma slammed into the spot Chen Fan had just vacated. Boom, the ground erupted, leaving a smoldering crater. If Chen Fan hadn't dodged, that hit would have messed him up big time. Chen Fan and Budek both looked skyward, their faces grim as they recognized the newcomer. Sakaski, they said in unison. You're the ringleader of this prison break, right? Surrender peacefully, and I'll make it quick. Sakaski's body was a swirling inferno of lava, his gaze fixed on Chen Fan, cold as ice. Ha! You want me to surrender? I'll just stand here and let you cuff me, then. Chen Fan knew Sakaski was a beast, but the guy was clearly hurting and not at full strength, giving them a fighting chance. If this was Sakaski in his prime, Chen Fan would have thrown in the towel, but with that bandage wrapped around his gut, it was clear he wasn't fully recovered. Since you refuse to come quietly, I'll just have to beat you down and drag you in. Nobody disrespects the Navy. With that, Sakaski turned into a walking volcano, lava hardening his fists to obsidian black, and charged at Chen Fan and Budek. Knowing what they were up against, Chen Fan and Budek didn't hesitate. They coated their fists with hockey, channeling every ounce of strength into a head-on assault, boom, their fists collided like boulders, the impact creating a shockwave of dust and flying debris. Sakaski, single-handedly overpowering both of them, forced Chen Fan and Budek back several feet, while he stood firm, the oppressive heat radiating off Sakaski's lava form made it hard to breathe. They were cornered. Chen Fan knew failure meant almost certain death. Shave, that they both used shave, vanishing, then reappearing at blinding speed, aiming for Sakaski. You asked for this, Sakaski snarled, his face grim. For a moment, the battle turned into a flurry of motion, lava splattering as fists crashed into flesh. It was a one-sided brawl. Chen Fan and Budek were barely holding their own against Sakaski, time ticked by, the heat intensifying, every punch from Sakaski landed hard, leaving Chen Fan and Budek battered and bruised. Meanwhile, their attacks barely scratched Sakaski, a scratch like that was nothing to him. Huff, huff. Panting hard, their stamina was fading fast. Sakaski, facing two of them, looked like he was barely breaking a sweat. Chen Fan and Budek were physical combat specialists, but even at close range, they couldn't gain the upper hand. Sakaski was still nursing an injury, holding back a lot of his power. No wonder Sakaski would become a monster, a beast with a killer devil fruit, unstoppable power, and freakish hockey. Against someone like that, Chen Fan and Budek didn't stand a chance. It was a dead end. Sakaski was a mountain standing in their way, crushing any hope of escape. Chen Fan's mind raced. How could they get out of this? But time was running out, and Sakaski gave no sign of slowing down. That obsidian fist, glowing with molten heat, was coming right at him. Every muscle in Chen Fan's right arm strained as he countered with a hockey-infused punch of his own. Boom, the two dark fists collided like dragons, sending nearby rubble flying. Chen Fan felt a brutal force slam into his hand, forcing him back. At the same instant, Budek's right foot, black as night, came crashing down on Sakaski from above like a battering ram. Sakaski barely reacted, using his hockey-covered left arm to block the kick. Then, his right fist, enveloped in lava, shot forward. Budek, in his animal form, tried to dodge, but it was too late. Boom, the force of the blow sent him flying, slamming into the ground and creating a dust-filled crater. Sakaski, I'm gonna kill you. Chen Fan roared, seeing his buddy down. Blood rage, his blood roared in his veins, his heart pounding, as his aura flared. This was his ultimate technique, honed over the past 6 years, his trump card. Chen Fan's body radiated a fierce energy as his strength multiplied. Hockey. Collapse fist. Chen Fan channeled his hockey into his right fist, surrounded by a bloody aura, concentrating all his power into a single, lightning-fast blow aimed directly at Sakaski. Hockey. Hellhound. Sakaski's expression remained unchanged. Lava erupted from his right fist, transforming into a monstrous magma dog that lunged at Chen Fan. Boom, the two devastating attacks collided. The surrounding area was pulverized, debris scattering, and shockwaves rippled outward. Chen Fan was hurled back 15 feet. Sakaski, for the first time in the battle, took a step back. Sakaski was clearly caught off guard by Chen Fan's sudden surge of power, but his arrogance remained. Interesting, but being a pirate is your biggest mistake, and this is where you die. You sure about that? I got a feeling I've got a long life ahead of me. I think you're digging your own grave. Chen Fan's expression was grim, his body vanishing again, wreathed in that blood-red energy. This was a desperate move, draining his life force. He had to end this quickly. His fist, black as night, flew at Sakaski. Sakaski's body became a swirling vortex of magma, his fist steaming. He vanished, leaving a crater in the ground, and countered. Bang, bang, they traded blows, fists slamming into flesh, blood splattering on the ground. Chen Fan was still at a disadvantage. Even with his trump card, Sakaski still had the upper hand. Chapter 19 Death, Anger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even though Sakaski wasn't quite admiral level yet, he was definitely on par with, or even stronger than, an elite vice admiral. Chen Fan, after revealing his trump card, only had the strength of a regular vice admiral for a short time. If Sakaski hadn't been injured, the fight would have been pointless. As time ticked on, Chen Fan grew more and more anxious, knowing that every second he lingered increased the danger, but he was stuck. He couldn't beat Sakaski and was barely surviving as it was. Once Chen Fan's blood rage wore off, he was done for. This sudden power boost of yours is interesting, but it won't last. Got any other tricks up your sleeve? Otherwise, it's game over. Sakaski said, completely in control. Don't worry, I'll show you, Chen Fan replied, clearly reluctant. He'd planned everything carefully and didn't want to be captured again. Escaping prison again would likely mean immediate execution. Thinking this, Chen Fan steeled himself for a desperate fight. Hockey. Secret. Overlord Fist. Instantly, Chen Fan's aura exploded. His blood surged, and the veins on his right fist bulged, turning it an intensely dark color as all his power concentrated into one point. The black fist shot toward Sakaski with incredible speed. Cheap shot. Hockey. Hound Guren. Sakaski remained arrogant. Molten magma solidified on his right hand, and his fist turned pitch black. Then, the magma-formed arm blasted forward. The hot magma erupted, transforming into a giant dog in midair, ready to engulf its prey. Boom! The blazing magma dog and the black fist collided. Rubble flew everywhere, and the surrounding area was pulverized. Shockwaves radiated outward. The sheer power made Chen Fan feel helpless. Within seconds, the giant magma dog sent him flying. Boom! Chen Fan crashed into the ground, creating a crater. His body was scorched black and covered in gruesome wounds. He was clearly badly hurt, and given Sakaski's personality, he wouldn't let Chen Fan escape. Time to die, you worthless pirate. Sakaski's figure appeared with those words, his magma-covered fist aimed directly at Chen Fan. Staggering to his feet, Chen Fan tried to raise his fist to block, but he felt utterly powerless due to his injuries and exhaustion. He had no chance of stopping Sakaski's punch. At the last moment, with Sakaski less than 15 feet away, a massive body appeared in front of him. Xiong Guozhang, it was Budek, who had been unconscious but had now woken up. His massive bare paw, infused with dark hockey, possessed terrifying power. He managed to block the magma fist just in time. Get out of here. We'll both die if we stay. One of us needs to escape. Budek yelled to Chen Fan. After a split-second hesitation, Chen Fan realized that neither of them stood a chance against Sakaski. If they didn't act now, neither would make it. Without another thought, Chen Fan used shave and sped towards the sea. Think you can run? Sakaski wouldn't let Chen Fan get away. Magma flared around his right fist, and he punched forward with overwhelming force, knocking Budek back several yards. But as he turned to pursue Chen Fan, Budek charged again. The hockey-covered bare paws aimed at Sakaski's back. Forced to react, Sakaski spun around and unleashed a magma-infused punch, pushing Budek back once more. As long as I'm here, you're not chasing him. Budek declared, determination blazing in his eyes despite the blood trickling from his mouth, evidence of his serious injuries. A marine trader dares to stand in my way. You've got a death wish. Sakaski, enraged by the obstruction, erupted with magma. The temperature soared, and the ground began to melt. He vanished in a burst of speed, his right fist swinging forward as the magma dog lunged towards Budek. Facing the devastating attack, Budek covered his massive bare paws with Busashoku hockey. Veins popping on his arms, he thrust forward. In the next instant, the bare paws met the magma dog and were instantly submerged. The scorching magma engulfed Budek, creating a large crater in the ground. Meanwhile, Chen Fan dove into the sea. He dared not risk taking a boat, knowing Sakaski would overtake him. His only chance was the water. As a devil fruit user, Sakaski was vulnerable to seawater. Seeing Chen Fan jump into the ocean, Sakaski moved to pursue him. But just as he was about to turn into magma and disappear, a hand covered in hockey grabbed his ankle. As long as I'm here, you're not getting that kid. Run. Be free for the rest of your life. Budek, barely clinging to life, shouted at Chen Fan, clutching Sakaski's right leg with both hands. At this moment, Chen Fan paused his swim, turning to look at Budek, who was gasping for air. His heart was wrenched, his face a mask of anguish and rage. You're all courting death. How can you call yourselves Marines, collaborating with pirates? Sakaski spat, his eyes icy with fury, as his magma-covered fist slammed into Budek's chest. No, Chen Fan roared in despair, but he was helpless. He could only watch as Sakaski's fist pierced Budek's chest, breath fading. Budek, impaled through the heart, looked at Chen Fan, now 100 yards offshore, and whispered, "Run." Then, his eyes closed, his hands fell limp, and he fell silent forever. "Master!" Chen Fan cried out, his eyes burning with rage, his fists clenched tight. He swore in his heart that he would kill Sakaski and avenge his master. Consumed by fury, Chen Fan plunged deeper into the water. He knew that escape was his only path to vengeance. At the shore, Sakaski glared at Chen Fan, who had swum hundreds of yards out and disappeared beneath the waves. Chapter 20 Sky Island. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He was pissed. He couldn't believe he'd gone after the guy himself and still let that pirate get away. Giving up wasn't Sakaski's style, though. Instantly, he transformed into magma and shot into the air above the sea. Great eruption. The heat from his magma went off the charts, fiery energy gathering in his hands. He raised them high, countless globs of scorching magma shot out, like a volcanic eruption, bombarding the ocean surface. Boom! Explosions ripped through the water, the once calm sea erupting in fireballs. Chen Fan, lurking below, could feel the temperature rising fast. He kicked it into high gear and swam even faster. Seeing that Chen Fan wasn't being blasted out of the water, Sakaski's expression darkened. If he were a full-fledged admiral, he could just scorch the entire area. Too bad he didn't have that kind of power yet. And as a devil fruit user, jumping into the ocean himself was out of the question, so Sakaski was stuck up there, frustrated. How was he supposed to find Chen Fan? His observation hockey was pretty strong, but not strong enough to cover such a vast area. He searched and searched, but found nothing. Meanwhile, somewhere else, deep within Impel Down, on the 6th floor, a place they called Infinite Hell, lay a scene of carnage. Corpses littered the ground, along with unconscious pirates and jailers. Most of the big-name pirates on that level were dead. The few survivors were out cold. Magellan, who'd pushed himself beyond his limits, was now slumped on the ground, covered in blood. His venom had dissipated, and he lacked the strength even to maintain his devil fruit powers. That's how bad things were. Of the nearly 200 jailers, fewer than 10 were still standing. Magellan and his crew had won, but it was a Pyrrhic victory, a win that cost them dearly. They were lucky that there weren't any truly legendary pirates down there at the moment, like Shiki the Golden Lion. Plus, most of them were too lazy to train, or were simply too old. Most of the pirates were shadows of their former selves, nowhere near as strong as when they'd first been captured. Of course, Magellan's devil fruit gave him a huge advantage in that confined space, allowing him to fight at 120% capacity. Otherwise, the battle might not have been a narrow victory, but a total loss for both sides. Down in the depths, Chen Fan seethed with rage, wanting nothing more than to kill Sakaski, but he knew he wasn't strong enough yet. He kept diving, pushing himself as far as he could. His arms and legs were burning, and his strength was nearly gone. Even so, he didn't dare surface. He had to reach his absolute limit before he risked it. Otherwise, if Sakaski was still lurking around, everything would have been for nothing. After swimming for almost 10 minutes, Chen Fan felt like he couldn't hold his breath another second. He slowly rose to the surface. He scanned the horizon. No sign of Sakaski. He gulped in a breath of air and glanced at the blue sky. He knew he wasn't out of the woods yet. He needed to find a small island to hide on. He was still in danger. The Navy would definitely be sending warships to hunt him down, and Sakaski wouldn't give up that easily, either. Just thinking about Sakaski filled Chen Fan with fury. It was the first time he'd ever felt such a burning desire to kill someone. He swore to himself that he would get revenge on Sakaski for Budek. Night fell. Chen Fan reached an island in the Sabaody archipelago. His injuries and exhaustion were at their breaking point. If he kept going like this, he'd die even if the Navy didn't catch him. Without hesitating, he broke into a nearby house. Inside, a hulking man with a scar across his face stood his ground. "Who are you? You dare break into my home?" Do you have any idea who I am? I'm with the giant tiger pirates. The man brandished a huge sword, glaring at Chen Fan. Without a word, Chen Fan vanished. The big guy barely had time to register his shock and fear before blood spurted out, and his head was a pile of mush. Chen Fan then started looking for food in the house. Soon, he found a good stash. His head swimming, Chen Fan started eating, not caring about anything else. A faint warmth spread through his body, entering his bloodstream, then flowing into his organs. Like rain after a drought, it slowly began to repair the damage to Chen Fan's body. His near-broken body began to stabilize. Meanwhile, Navy warships were scouring the sea, desperately searching for any sign of Chen Fan. In the Fleet Admiral's office, Cyborg Kong had just learned that some kid had actually escaped from the 6th floor of Impel Down. His already thin hair looked like it was about to explode off his head. Kong glared at Zifa, Sengoku, Garp, and the others in the office. A nobody escaped from the 6th floor. This is a disgrace to the Navy. I'm giving you one last chance. Except for Garp, you stay here. The rest of you, catch that kid, Wang Ji's son, immediately. Everyone looked grim under Kong's angry gaze. Only Garp kept munching on his donuts, a grin on his face. That kid's got some guts. His father was pretty strong too. He lasted a whole hour against me before I took him down. The mood at Impel Down was incredibly somber. Magellan and Shiryu were both covered in bandages. It was clear they'd been through hell. Neither of them spoke, and neither did their subordinates. They all knew that the legend, the myth that no one could ever escape from Impel Down, had been shattered that day. A pirate, barely 20 years old, had broken the unbreakable prison right under their noses. A month later, a young man appeared on a small island in the North Blue. It was Chen Fan. The day after he'd recovered, he'd left the Sabaody archipelago. The Navy searched the area for 2 days, but found nothing. They had to face the fact that Chen Fan had gotten away. They also had to accept that a boy under 20 had shattered the myth of Impel Down.